Affairs specialist Robert Valencia joining us on Skype from New York. Hi, Robert. This feels familiar.
Hello.
Russia and China on one side and the West/everyone else on the other side of a regional dispute. I'm guessing that wouldn't really worry either Russia or China. They're looking after their own interests here.
Of course. I mean, let's look at what happened a couple of weeks ago when President Maduro visited Vladimir Putin, and basically Moscow offered a lifeline to Caracas with $6 billion, and they signed an array of business dealings. Russia sent 2 nuclear bombers to Caracas, which actually rattled Washington, because we haven't seen anything like this since the missile crisis back in the 1960s. So certainly Cuba and Russia and Turkey also has interest in Venezuela. There's no doubt about that. It's not just the United States. It's not just Latin America. There's a lot at stake here. And in addition to the riches of Venezuela, we have a humanitarian crisis. 3 million people left Venezuela since 2015. So there is a lot here to discuss. There's a lot here at stake, as I mentioned. So it's in everybody's interest to have a stable Venezuela.
One of our viewers watching on Facebook Live has asked, can Russia and China challenge the U.S. sanctions on the oil companies in Venezuela? Now, as far as I would know, the U.S. sanctions is completely different from any relationship that China and Russia have. But maybe we could look at it through terms of, can China and Russia on one side balance out the equation when you've got sanctions coming in hard from the U.S.?
They can absolutely. They can absolutely. They can purchase oil from Venezuela. Obviously, it will be at a bargaining price. The sanctions that we've heard this week is that the United States will not purchase Venezuelan oil. We're talking about 40% of oil exports to the United States. So obviously, you have other powers like China and Russia willing to purchase this oil, and not just these 2 countries. We have India. We have Turkey. We have all these countries willing to purchase this oil. Now, obviously, the sanctions that the Treasury has imposed on Venezuela comes to the detriment of many people here in the United States. We have a 2% increase in oil price surge, and then you have also some problems for people who live who live off oil reserves in the Gulf Coast here in the United States. They might compromise their job. And at the same time, the Trump administration may have to rely on oil reserves. I mean, all this with the idea of helping Juan Guaido, clinch power while he calls for new elections in Venezuela.
Just quickly, Robert, what are your feelings about the potential for actual conflict in Venezuela? I mean, there have been clearly a lot of protests. Again, one of our Facebook viewers, Baron, is asking or saying, I hope this political misunderstanding won't cause a war in Venezuela anytime soon. I just wonder, with all the different sides who are sort of showing their support on either side here, what risk is there?
Well, I mean, this is a really interesting question, and I think the sanctions that we heard this week is that the purpose of the sanctions is to avoid the diverting money that normally the administration of Nicolás Maduro receives from selling oil, because the claim is that this money diverts to the military or to pay off officials in Venezuela. By imposing sanctions like that, it will mean that the military will break ranks with the Maduro administration. They will not support Maduro, and instead they will support Juan Guaido. Now, hopefully there will be a civil unrest. The idea is that there will not be more bloodshed than there already is. I don't think there's going to be any military intervention from the United States. As we heard before, there were talks between the United States and some military officials, but it didn't come to fruition. I think we do not need to have an exacerbation of a military crisis that there already is in Venezuela.
Yeah, let's hope not. Robert Valencia, really interesting talking to you. Thank you for all your expertise there. And thank you